right, so I'm very happy to be the first lightning talk. And this is going to be a talk about why we should be patenting math, and also a challenge for all of us for this week. So let's see. Okay, so I'm going to start by telling you a tale of two schemes. The first scheme is something that we know quite well, and that's the Schnorr signature scheme. So essentially, a Schnorr signature scheme, it's just a discrete log proof of knowledge, where essentially we sample a nonce, we create a commitment, we create a Fiat-Shamir challenge, and then the response is just a linear proof of knowledge of the secret key. So this is very nice, it's linear, it's very simple. And something that's also really nice about Schnorr is that it's simple to thresholdize due to this linear operation. So for doing things like custody with wallets, if we want to do threshold signing, Schnorr is one of the perfect algorithms to do so because you can do everything in a linear manner. So, but there's a catch. So why didn't we just use Schnorr in the first place? And that's because it was patented. So yeah, I mean, this is obviously what we should have been doing in the first place, but there was a patent. And that patent was from 1991 to 2008. So at this time, we're kind of recovering from this patent. But yeah, basically our industry suffered for a long time. And I don't even know how to quantify how much money went into trying to circumvent this patent, but it was kind of a lot. So to compensate, we had ECDSA. And ECDSA is very similar to Schnorr in that it's also a discrete log scheme. However, to get around the patent, basically signing involved a non-linear operation over the nonce. And as many of us know very well, this is very difficult to thresholdize because of this non-linear operation. So the schemes that we get are very, very complicated. So did we learn our lesson about patents? Unfortunately, we did not. So that is kind of what this lightning talk is about. So what's really interesting is in the threshold ECDSA setting, we do have non-patented schemes in the honest minority setting. However, in the honest majority setting, we have had some schemes come out recently which are unfortunately patented. And actually, when I was discussing this yesterday with someone, they made the very astute observation that it's kind of ironic to be patenting things in the ECDSA setting. So yeah, so essentially that's the challenge for this lightning talk. Let's create a patent-free honest majority threshold ECDSA scheme. And in the last few seconds that I have remaining, basically the takeaways from this talk, please don't patent your cryptography. We've all worked on and kind of built on the shoulders of other people in this field. So be a good citizen and please don't patent your work because it builds on other things. And tell your friends to also not patent cryptography. So let's create that kind of culture in this field. And I would love to create an open alternative for honest majority ECDSA. And come talk to me to solve this. I hope we can solve it by the end of the week. So, thank you.
Sorry, is there, oh, sick, okay. All right, hi everyone, I'm Karun. I work at Axiom Math, where we're working on formal verification through Lean for math and beyond. There's sort of been an advent, a sort of revolution in automated theorem proving in the last 5 years, largely driven by progress in Lean and in AI. The nice thing about Lean is that Lean proofs are auditable. There are certificates of correctness for whatever protocol you're working on or whatever system you're working on. And it has a fairly small trusted kernel, although recently there have been a couple kernel bugs. And we've been, like a lot of other companies in the last few years, working on proof systems that leverage Lean to do research level math along with other styles of reasoning. We've been working on applications across domains for this, and in the spirit of transparency, we are not the only people doing this, but we've been focused on verification as an interesting sort of application of automated theorem proving. And I think the thesis is that if we can do theorem proving at scale, this leads us to being able to do automated verification. We've sort of done some preliminary work in this space, where we built tooling out for theorem proving at scale. In particular, we've done a lot of work on how do you build like infrastructure for running thousands and hundreds of thousands of verification conditions that result from hundreds of thousands of lines of Lean code. And we're really interested in applying both of these axes, automated theorem proving and infrastructure at scale, towards verifying correctness in software, such as that in the blockchain, along with smart contracts and protocols for distributed systems. So, ending a little early, but if you're interested in chatting more with us, my contact information is up on the slide. Our website is axiomap.ai, and I'd love to chat with people here. Yeah, just a quick spiel. So if anyone has any questions, come find me. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Xin, a PhD student here at Stanford University and working on investment analysis at Easy Labs. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for the opportunity to sponsor SBC from Easy Labs. So Easy Labs is a $10 billion fund founded by CZ from Binance and led by Ella Zhang. We're investing across Web3, AI, robotics, deep tech, and biotech. We have over 300 portfolio companies spanning over 25 countries. So some famous examples from blockchain include Polygon, Babylon, Athena, Sui, Pano, etc. And we also invested in xAI. Today, I want to share some views about the future and the next stage of blockchain. So we think the next step is about integration and adoption. There are three main pillars: money, markets, and assets. First, money and payments. So we know that stablecoins can move values easily cross-border, but challenges remain on the fiat edge. For example, how can payments be routed efficiently across different fragmented liquidity pools? And how can we make currency conversion transparent, always reliable, and without relying on private over-the-counter deals? Second, markets. Blockchain can create new forms of markets for pricing information and risks that were not available before. There are opportunities in making previously inaccessible risks measurable, tradable, and hedgeable. For example, from RWA RWA perps to pre-IPO stocks and real-world events. So the question is, how can we incentivize informed participation, limit manipulation, and create durable liquidity and resolve outcomes credibly? Third, assets. For any new form of assets brought on-chain, the question that we should ask is, what can it do today that it could not do before? For example, can it become collateral, a new index component, or a new form of derivatives that were too costly or inaccessible before? Researchers and builders are often the first ones to spot problems and solve them. And we, Easy Labs, are here to help them turn research into real products. We are here to help with the next step. So from reaching to customers, to launching the products, building markets, finding product market fit, and scaling the company. We are here for long-term partnerships, and we are here with technical and go-to-market resources, ecosystem access, and we also support early-stage founders through the Easy Residency program. It's our flagship incubation program. We offer $500K per team for a duration of 10 weeks, and we have 3 different batches per year. So tonight we have our reception in Palo Alto. You guys are all welcome to join us tonight from 6 to 9. And we have the 3 links for Easy Labs, the Easy Residency program and the reception RSVP that you guys can scan. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Damien from the BNB team. I do product at the blockchain. BNB, for anyone who is not familiar, is one of the largest blockchains in production today. So, let's see. Ooh, how do I do this? So, today we're going to be talking about how we build sub-second finality on BNB chain. The problem that most transactions have is that they have a hidden variable, essentially. That hidden variable is how long do I need to wait until my transaction is actually final. So we brought our confirmed finality latency down from 45 seconds to 650 milliseconds, which is a 70x improvement over the last 4 years, with zero EVM semantic changes, of course. So, ooh, hold on. Thank you. Oh dear. What do I? No. Okay, I'm not getting it. Oh well, it's fine. So we're going to just do this without the slides. So the problem is that most chains only give you probabilistic finality, which means you need to wait for confirmations to stack up. So you need to basically wait to see how long your block is going to be final. So deterministic finality is different because on BNB chain, we're basically taking 2/3 of validators who cast BLS signed signatures, who cast their signatures once, and that once that threshold's met, after 2 consecutive rounds, the block is cryptographically irreversible. If that voting layer ever degrades, the chain doesn't halt. It just falls back to old probabilistic. Falls back to its old probabilistic mode. Liveness and safety are 2 separate, independently thresholded layers, and they don't actually interact with each other. So if one goes down, then the other doesn't actually impact the other layer. So we have a finality voting layer which introduces safety, and Parlia, our consensus mechanism, actually makes sure that blocks keep kind of being produced, which is a very big departure from where we started out, where that 45 seconds bought us 15 confirmations and just probabilistic finality, not deterministic finality, which is now cryptographically enforced. So to quickly run you through our 4 different BEPs, our BNB evolution proposals, that's what it stands for. 126 introduced the voting layer itself. 590 fixed the fact that we had vote propagation was basically kind of broken because we have 450 millisecond block times today. So 590 basically said proposers can now pull up votes from up to 3 kind of previous blocks instead of just the parent block. So that stabilized finality at around 900 milliseconds. BEP 648 asked, if I actually have all of these signatures in my local mempool, why should I wait until the kind of global event announcement that this block has been you have to wait for this next global announcement in the chain. So local observation was kind of brought down local observation brought down this latency from 900 milliseconds to 650 milliseconds with no fork required. BEP 667 still in draft, but targets pushing the block interval below today's 450 millisecond block times by voting once only every n blocks instead of every block. Since going faster on every block voting alone hits the far physics wall, 250 millisecond intervals, network round trip delay basically makes it impossible for that data to be imported into the kind of window that you have to vote. So 3 properties to quickly walk through is that we have orthogonal, degradable, and incremental. So incremental basically means each BEP built on the last. Orthogonal means every parameter tuned sits outside the safety proofs entirely that we've used since BEP 126. Degradable means liveness and finality are layered and not coupled the way they are with Tendermint and hot stuff. And just 1 or 2 examples to finish on is this basically means very easy to kind of have sex deposits because they're now a couple seconds rather than closer to a minute. And it means that bridging is also easier because your data can only move as fast as the slowest chain. So 1 safety proof, 4 years, reuse 4 times, and we haven't actually had to change the underlying proof in all this time. So thank you.
Hello, and today I'm really excited to present post-quantum, very lightweight client-side validation blockchain that has managed to make the on-chain footprint of a transaction down to 3 hashes. And it's removed signatures and proofs, which are going to get larger post-quantum, entirely off of the chain, and has kept it very lightweight. So in this example, we see Alice trying to send money to Bob. And what Alice has to do is to prove that her transaction footprint was included in the history of the chain and just generate that proof against the latest validation block, obscuring the location of where the transaction happened, and send that proof directly to Bob. And in this proof, it consists of mainly 3 statements. The statement about the output, that there is some sort of output designed for Bob for the given amount and the public key after some block hash, and then that the inputs of the transaction were valid and unspent, and hence they were the first spend that when Alice posted the on-chain footprint, those were the valid inputs. And lastly, it's to do with the correctness of the transaction, so no inflation, and the only thing that's produced is the miner fee. So this is how we've got the 3 hashes set up. We've got the TX ID, which commits to the structure of the off-chain transaction. We've got the nullifier, which acts very similarly to the Zcash nullifier, where it references the unspent output. And finally, the degriefer, which acts now as the spend authorization. So it's using a hash function, mixing the secret key material that only you would know with the nullifier and the TX ID in a way that you can prove invalidity or validity of appearances of the attempts to use your nullifier. And we're using recursive ZK proofs to prove the coin history all the way back to the genesis in a way that's done incrementally instead of throughout the entire history repeatedly. So it's quite an efficient way of, validating that the transaction has been correctly formed. And if this interests you, come and speak to us. Thanks.
Hello. Very nicely done sequencing these. My name is Preston. I'm going to be talking about some ongoing work with my co-authors, Yiping, Pedro, and Duke, called Paired Partitioning for State Pruning and Privacy-Preserving Cryptocurrencies. So one way to think about certain cryptocurrencies is you have an allow list. So we can see Bitcoin in this framework, where the UTXO set is the allow list. I have my Bitcoin transaction, and then I prove membership of the inputs into that allow list. And it's very nice, but it doesn't provide any privacy. And so if we want to have privacy, then we introduce a deny list, which I'll be calling a nullifier list, and that is spent tags. So we don't delete any entries in the allow list, unlike in Bitcoin. And now we just we create the spent tag and we add it to the nullifier list. And then you have good privacy guarantees here. The problem is that we need to keep both the allow list and the nullifier list, and they only grow over time. So if we look at Zcash and Monero through this, Zcash, it's pretty good. We have anonymity in the global set of Zcash transactions, and the state grows indefinitely, and that seems like a fair trade-off. I have privacy in the global set, and then I keep the state of the global set as well. Monero, on the other hand, is not such a great trade-off. We don't have privacy at the global set level, even though we need to keep the state for all of it. We only have privacy at the size of the ring signatures, which is 16 currently. And so our idea is to have, we partition these paired sets, the allow list set and the nullifier list, into different buckets, and we get those pairings based off of the total order property of consensus. And each partition is going to be of size k. Once the partitions are fully spent, then we can prune the state that is attached with them as it is no longer needed, and therefore we have this tunable parameter where you get to choose the privacy versus state at your liking. So high values of k would provide large privacy because you are one of a high number of k people in this partition, whereas low values of k would not provide much privacy, but you would get to prune the state very quickly because those smaller buckets would then fill up rather fast. And so this is our idea, and it sort of introduces this continuum of k equals 1 is Bitcoin, where there is no privacy, but you're always pruning the allow list. Whenever you spend a transaction, you delete that out of the UTXO set. And k as infinity is Zcash as it stands nowadays. Nothing is ever pruned, but you get that privacy at the global level. Thank you.
So hello everyone, my name is Patrick and I want to talk about two of our papers regarding Ethereum censorship resistance. In the first paper, why Ethereum needs fairness mechanisms that do not depend on participants' altruism, we looked at an assumption made by Buterin in which he claims that there are at least a few % of altruistic proposers in the network. Since several recent censorship resistance mechanisms rely on this assumption, we set out to quantify what a few % actually means. Let us first take a look on what altruistic proposers are. We have Alice, and Alice is the current leader in the slot and can therefore propose a new block. Now there's Eve. Eve offers Alice some bribe if Alice does not include certain transactions in her block. Now, a straightforward question is whether Alice accepts this bribe and thereby contribute to censorship in the network, or does Alice act altruistically and would refuse this bribe. Recently, the common assumption is that something between 6 to 9% of all proposers are altruists. And for current proposals like Focal, these numbers are absolutely fine. However, we found that only 1.5% of all proposers in 2025 did not show actions that run counter to the intents of Ethereum. With the 89.5% of the remaining proposers, we should consider that they are most likely non-supportive for fairness mechanisms if compliance is not a rational choice. Therefore, we see an issue when small committees are responsible for deciding which transactions need to be included in the next block, which is basically the design of most censorship resistance mechanisms. On these grounds, in our current work, Accountable Transaction Inclusion Lists, we propose a mechanism in which we shift from committee-based inclusion decisions to accountability for censorship actions. Instead of having a committee that decides which transactions are required to be included in the next block, we now have a single party, say Alice, which can censor in her block, but is obligated to disclose all of these censorship actions. The normal slot validators verify this disclosure against a specified inclusion policy. If the disclosure is correct, the subsequent proposer is required and able to include the previously censored transactions in his block. We showed that the honest disclosure is the rational choice for a censoring Alice. Further, we measured that this approach increases the cost of censorship by an order of magnitude compared to recent inclusion list designs. Our approach has only a very few impact on MEV extraction and would have limited censorship to a maximum of 1 slot for nearly 90% of all transactions. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.
Hey all, I'm Dylan. I'm at Circle. I'm an AI research scientist there. And I'm going to pose a question that I'm not going to answer. So this is more just a topic for conversation. So if you want to talk about it, come find me. This is something I've been interested in. Does private AI need a blockchain? So this private AI is budding industry, a product that's been showing up a lot. So this is just like a short list of companies that I found that are doing this. Some subset of them use blockchain as part of the technology, another subset don't. To give you some background here, by private, what I mean is that it's TEE backed, so that's a trusted execution environment. What that means is we're sectioning off a part of a computer that's in an encrypted enclave so that all the compute that's happening in there is private, even to the person running the compute. So the host that's running the compute does not know what's being run inside, and the only way to access that data is by having some sort of decryption key. This is really useful for AI applications in sensitive areas, finance, healthcare, et cetera. I'm sure you can come up with your own. So yeah, there's a handful of companies that are trying to solve this problem, and some of them are using blockchain as part of the test stack, and other ones are not. And part of that could just be because they were already blockchain companies, or they were already compute provision companies, and they just used the hammer they had. But I'm curious if there's actually some realistic arguments for why you might want to use it or not. Digging around in these companies' websites doesn't bear much fruit. So you have to kind of think about it on your own. There's a lot of arguments for and against that I came up against that I didn't really find carried much weight. These are the ones that I felt like carried the most weight. So I'm just going to kind of list them off, and then y'all can come and tell me which ones you like, or if you have other ones. So I'll start with against, which is basically that it's like really hard for the blockchain itself to add anything to the security primitives that you're already establishing with the trusted execution environment. You can't actually post the output of the trusted execution environment called the attestation on chain. You can, but it would be very expensive. It's a lot of data. You could like roll it up with some kind of ZK thing to make it less data. That's a lot of work to just kind of duplicate security guarantees we already have. A lot of the companies that are currently providing this secure environment are able to do it in a way that's not trustless, but is using like neutral third parties to verify the compute, to verify that it was the program that you expected to be run is indeed what was run, and to verify that the data was encrypted. Another thing is, privacy is kind of the point, and if you put it all on a blockchain, then it's not as private, and so you're losing a lot of information there. So unless you have a private blockchain, then you don't have that. Wow, okay, I'm already out of time. Arguments for, which I think actually matter, are mostly grounded in identity and payment, right? And so if we can give agents an identity using the blockchain, and if we can use blockchain to pay between agents or agents to APIs at machine speeds, then that's a big argument to include that in the stack. Okay, I'm out of time, so thanks y'all.
Is the next speaker here? Okay. Let's maybe move on to the PowerPoint slides in this case.
Hello, this is Qianyu, and I will introduce our work, Angelfish, Leader, DAG, or anywhere in between. This is a joint work with Giuliano, Nibesh, and Xuechao. Sorry. How to use it? Okay. In BFT protocols, in leader-based protocol rely on leaders to disseminate data and propose. And good case latency of leader-based protocols can be very low, but the throughput can be limited by leader bandwidth. And there are two methods to improve throughput. One is using error coding, and the other is using a separate data demestination layer. In DAG-based protocols, parties propose in parallel. The throughput is higher than what leader-based protocols can promise. The latency is theoretically optimal, but it remains higher in practice. So we So we propose Angelfish, which can continuously adapt between those two extremes to obtain the best latency at any throughput. Sailfish is one of the state-of-art DAG-based protocols. Vortices are broadcasted by reliable broadcast, and the idea of Angelfish is to replace the empty blocks of Sailfish to cheaper Volt, which is broadcasted by best effort broadcast. And we introduce LeaderEdge to solve the safety violation of this modification. There are 3 advantages of our protocol. One, it has lower latency because we use 1 round BEB instead of 2 round RBC. And it has fewer parties proposed vertices, so its communication complexity is reduced. And slow nodes can still participate because if nodes are lagging behind, they can participate in consensus by sending votes instead of being regarded as crash nodes. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Jake Brookman. I'm the founder and CEO of CoinFund. And for over 10 years, we've been investing as an investment firm in decentralized networks, and then more recently, thinking about how these networks interact with AI. So since 2020 or so, we've been looking at decentralized AI and trying to figure out what this is all going to look like. And so today I want to talk about the fact that now that we've had a chance to live with some of the big AI models out there, the OpenAI and Anthropic models of the world, we now see some of the disadvantages of those models. High degree of centralization, danger to privacy, and the danger of like monopolization. Currently, there's a movement where everyone says that open weight models are the solution to the centralization of AI. In fact, just the other day, a giant list of companies, including Microsoft and Meta and NVIDIA, signed a big letter to this effect. But we conveniently sweep under the rug that to have a big open ecosystem of open weight models is going to cost us a lot of money. And in fact, it costs something like $100 million to over $1 billion, especially if you want to compete with a model like Fable 5, in order to train one of these things. And so my proposal today is that when everyone says they want open models, what they actually want is sustainable open source, and what they actually mean is that they want decentralized AI models. So what is a decentralized AI model? Let me tell you what it is. A decentralized AI model is a model that's trained on open, decentralized networks of heterogeneous GPU devices. It's a model whose weights are co-owned by the participants of the training and others, and therefore create a business model for this AI model in terms of its inference. And moreover, the decentralized ownership of this model creates an alignment between all of the participants. So the revenue, in other words, of the inference is securitized and can be publicly owned. Now, am I making this up? Well, I'm here to tell you that we've made tremendous progress in this area. Just over the last 2 years, algorithmic optimizations in communication bandwidth and model parallel training have enabled us to train dense LLMs that started at 10 billion parameters 2 years ago and are now at around 200 billion parameters. And I would predict that in the next year or so, we'll start to push trillion. There's enough compute out there in the world in consumer devices to be about 8 gigawatts, which is 4 times bigger than the largest data center today. And we also see this decentralized training market growing at about 20 times a year over the last couple of years. Decentralized AI models does the job of open source sustainably and just better. It creates the same open access and cost efficiencies as open models. It accelerates research, and most importantly, it creates checks and balances on big AI. So if you're building in this area, come chat with me, come chat with folks from CoinFund. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sabrina Wollenschläger. I am the co-managing director of the Blockchain Zug, the joint research initiative of the University of Lucerne and the Lucerne University of Applied Science and Arts, funded by the canton of Zug. So let's start with some numbers of the initiative. The initiative has a total funding volume of 39.35 million, which is roughly 48 million USD, provided everything by the canton of Zug. As you can see here, it's built around 3 pillars. On the left is the Zug Institute for Blockchain Research. It was a newly established as part of the initiative and focus on the fundamental research across the humanities, social science, and law. 9 dedicated professorships sit underneath it. Each comes with its own PhDs and postdocs. On the right side is the Lucerne University of Applied Science and Arts, where the focus is on applied research. We've defined 7 main research areas, but very important here to know we are not limited to them, as we are a large part of our work is done for and with the industry. So our research agenda is for sure also shaping directly by the industry. So industry needs and also the challenges. And last but not least, in the middle, connecting both sides, is the Joint Research Hub, the collaboration and communication platform for both institutions, internally and externally. Means we act as a central point of contact, bringing together the complementary strengths of both institutions and also to turning them into joint projects, collaboration, and new forms of education formats. Overall, we can say this is a unique, holistic, and interdisciplinary approach. And yeah, if you would like to explore the Crypto Valley ecosystem further, please scan the QR code down there. And this brings me already to my final points. If any part of this connects with you, super happy to connect with you and to find out if there are some synergies. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Ryan Kim from Fractalize. I'm going to talk about something called the new way of inventing like proving scheme in ZK industry. So we just launched something called George, which is a PyTorch for ZK proof. So to me, like the AI researcher is very similar to ZK researcher, but instead AI researcher, they create a model by stacking the layer by layer. But instead, in ZK researcher, they stack round by round. Then they can create a this Boron snare. Because to me, like Boron snare is a stack of the IOP round, and you write all this in Python. Then it can, because we have a compiler to make this Python to very efficient code can be run on CPU and GPU and TPU. And so yeah, if you use our stack, then the proving scheme is very readable. It literally is a proof around the running something over rounds, and it's already fast. Take SP1 case, we already support like production grade SP1, OpenVN, ZKVN. We even support Gross16 and even support Flock, recently very famous in this industry. And for SHA-17, we got already 1.75x faster. And here's the why, because in most of ZKVM, the most expensive part in ZK-VM, except for Jort, is zero check, and we made it faster, almost 3x faster, and it's very early stage, so we have a lot of room to optimize more. So if you are a ZK researcher, if you are the one who are trying to write some new proving scheme in Rust or CUDA C++ for NVIDIA CPU, please scan this QR code. How does it look? And if but we just carve out our one of our server to support this code snippet. If you run, all of you run it once, then you have to queue. And if you are compiled ZK-VM, it takes 40 seconds to compile it, but it really runs fast. And after all this talk, what I want to collaborate with you guys is basically to, because there's a running of time, I want to make it very short. First, I want to enable like model some very amazing parallelism over ZK proving scheme, because one of the reason that AI transformer LLM is scalable is because we can use many different parallelism scheme over transformer. But in ZK-VM, we can only use a data parallelism, which is very limited and one single GPU. We can parallelize it, we can scale it. And the second part we are trying to pursue is we want to make use of like Tensor Core. And yeah, because I'm very limited slide, very limited time, I couldn't talk all, but I'm going to have a discussion, all of this at White Paper Reading Club tomorrow. So if you are interested in like what I'm doing or why I'm building this, what can we do using this, please come to the White Paper Reading Club and to discuss together. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Crime by Design, RPC centralization in decentralized networks. So we left banks because they were these centralized mediators through which all of our transactions were going through. And then we switched to blockchains to free ourselves from this centralization. But guess what happens in decentralization? Our transactions continue to go through these centralized mediators, such as RPC providers, wallets, and so on. Let's consider the RPC provider. All of our transactions are going through this centralized mediator. Does that sound familiar? Oh yes, it's just like the bank. Wrench attacks have risen through the years. There have been cases where victims died, they had their fingers severed, they were tortured for weeks. France has in fact reported 77 crypto-linked kidnapping cases in the first quarter of 2026. And all of these attacks had one thing in common, which is that the attackers had access to the identity of the victim and how much wealth these victims held, which is their balances. And guess who else has access to this information? That's right, it's the RPC provider in which we have placed all of our trust. Even Vitalik Buterin has highlighted the threat of centralized RPC providers. These RPCs, they know it's you, which is de-anonymization or portfolio reconstruction. They already ask for personal information like your name, email address, and phone number. They could lock you out or censorship. In fact, RPCs have restricted users based on the country in the past. They could lie to you or data poisoning. Some malicious RPCs have been reportedly forged users' wallet balances in the past. And they could trade against you, which is MEV. RPCs see your transactions before they even reach the chain, so which means that they could easily front-run that transaction. So what did we find? Among the top 20 RPC providers, only one RPC does not collect the name, email, billing info, and IP address by default. Although we know existing mitigations like encrypted mempool and Tor, these hide different leakage components. For example, encrypted mempool hides transaction contents but not IP address. Tor hides IP address but not transaction contents. So we wanted to go about this in a structured fashion. What did we do? We first proposed a leakage framework. We borrowed the formalism from searchable encryption, MPC, and anonymity to the blockchain layer, making the way for focused mitigations. And then we did a leakage analysis by design of the existing defenses. And we found that no single mitigation suffices. They need to be composed. And currently, we do not have a solution, a deployed solution that offers this. We also design a multi-layer threat model where type 0 here represents full leakage and type 6 represents no leakage. And then we connect each of these leakage components to a leakage abuse attack. We find that de-anonymization survives till type 4 of our threat model, and censorship and MEV survives till type 5 of our threat model. This study is not limited to just the RPC provider. In fact, this framework extends to the entire blockchain stack. Thank you for your time. Feel free to come talk to me at lunch if you have questions. Thank you.
Can we reflect this one from the laptop?
Good afternoon. I'm Siddharth from the University of Maryland, and I'm going to be talking about fraud detection using graph neural networks. And this work is being done with Professor Tej Anand. So jumping into the problems, companies like Chain Analysis and Elliptic sometimes have thresholds that decides if a wallet is categorized as fraud or not. And those results in high false positives. Then if we just look at the address, then that heuristic is also unusable because fraud exists within transaction graphs and not just the wallet itself. And the key problem is that labeled data sets are actually very limited. So we have only 1% of Ethereum wallets that actually have confirmed fraud labels. So the approach, first up, we extract features from the transactions. We'll be taking the transaction frequency, the gas usage, in and out ratio, the burst patterns, and also the multi-hop distance to known illicit nodes. Next, we'll be building a graph, and where this will be using a hierarchical graph attention mechanism that assigns weights to the neighbors of a certain node based on its relevance. And after aggregating the features, we would then update the representations. After running this analysis, we would then give them embeddings, and those embeddings would be combined with the small labeled datasets which we have to classify the wallets as phishing, Ponzi, or money laundering. And this should be accessible using smart contracts on chain, which is useful for compliance within DeFi. Finally, the results. Using this attention mechanism, we're able to outperform classical methods like deep walk and also GCN by up to 36 F1 points. And we've also got a 52% hit ratio on Tornado Cash wallets. And using the embeddings, since this model is learning the embeddings through an unsupervised way, we're able to separate the normal and phishing wallets pretty cleanly. A natural next direction would be to use zero-knowledge proofs in order to prove that an address is fraud without revealing the transaction itself or doxing the wallet address. And we'll also need to make sure that this model remains robust because fraud detection is mostly almost a cat and mouse game. And fraudsters would obviously want to evade detection. So this work is also inspired by the CryptoX AI paper, which was released by IC3 after the Princeton bootcamp. And I'm happy to take any feedback if anyone wants to link later. Thank you so much.
So is anyone here to give the proof of social capital talk? can we again reflect from the laptop? Can you plug? Okay.
Sorry. I'm plugging.
Okay, so let's do this.
I send you.
Yeah. We can also play the PDF, maybe the PDF presentation, because it's also there.
So my name is Ivan, and I'm from Czech Republic, and I represent here the BlockSec research group, as well as the BlockFin research group in Bratislava, Slovakia. So if you would like to speak with these two regions or country, just please reach me. We do various kind of research related to the system security and DeFi, and this is just one of the thought-provoking example I want to demonstrate you here, and it's called Proof of Social Capital. It's a joint work with my PhD student, Juraj. And we are addressing the problem of proof of work and proof of stake that rely on computational or financial resources. So it's limiting the participation and fairness. That's why the motivation is that I might not have 32 Ethers to stake if we consider Ethereum or commodity hardware like Antminer, but I might have a social influence. Another motivation is that direct stable means for social influence monetization. For example, Web2 social platform can pay out some reward, but this is just a small portion of the profits they have. And another idea is you can or we already have the shares of the companies, but we don't have a shares of the individuals that might have a social capital. So this is something equivalent. So goal is to utilize the social capital as a resource for consensus protocol with the key features that we need to ensure the uniqueness of the followers in the Web3, so there are no civil entities. Also some kind of consensus stuff like WISC, which is a matter of the Ethereum, how to avoid the DOS on leaders. Objectives, it's decrease entry barrier, decentralization, and privacy. And we have two roles in this kind of consensus protocol that replace the stakes for the social capital. First of all, are content creators who actually produce the block, and followers who endorse the content creators by endorsement transaction. And once they reach the certain threshold of social capital, they can stake this social capital and create the block in a very similar fashion like in Ethereum. So this is just an example of this system. You have the followers who assign the social capital to the content creators, and content creators create the block. But what you can see here is that there might be an inequality in distribution of the social capital, and we also address this by scaling functions, and this actually mitigate this inequality. And you may also ask what can be the benefit for the followers or the client. So they might be rewarded in different ways, like they can get access to the exclusive content or some other things which are outside of Web3. And we are utilizing the ZK Snark proof for uniqueness verification. And we did some experiments and evaluated it on a proof of concept implementation, and we found out that generation of the Snark proofs took 45 seconds, which can be easily done on community hardware of the clients. We analyzed some security analysis with respect to the 33% accumulation of the consensus power, and we found out that to avoid this, it's just necessary to make the cost of the endorsement transaction bigger than $1, which is a bit tricky thing, because for the content creators to obtain sufficient social capital, they might pay some money for that, because this transaction is reimbursed by the content creators, not by the followers who are creating the transaction. And here is just demonstration or the case study on the YouTube, when YouTube content creators where there are 1 million randomly selected channels, and you can see that there is very high inequality represented by the Gini coefficient of almost 0.8. And if you apply the scaling functions that we already have, this can be reduced to 0.3 or 0.05. So this has still some open problems or questions. So if you are interested in this, please share with me your contacts, or just drop me some feedback on the Telegram or email. So thank you.